for most people, we're just going through the motions of life. We're just living as is. For people to change, it takes the rock bottom moment. So my message for people is you don't need a near-death accident. You don't need the rock bottom moment in order to change. You can change right now in this moment. So that same question I ask myself with why am I still here is what they can ask themselves. And for me, one of the biggest things was I asked myself, if it would have all ended in that moment, is this the legacy you want to leave?
Yeah.
And I was like, no. And it still drives me to this day. It's like, I don't want to get to the end of my life and realize I could have done more. I could have helped more people. I could have made a bigger impact.
Hey everyone, it's Tamara Thompson with Broadcast Your Authority, and I'm super excited for my next guest that just flew in from Nashville, Tennessee. And Justine Moseley, we connected at an event, I believe back in 2021, and we've stayed in touch since. So whenever I meet really cool people, I like to connect and stay connected. He's a former chiropractor, turned public speaker, keynote speaker. He's done 2 TEDx talks now, and he has a great TEDx talk video that we'll actually link to this video. So you can check out that because that video is taking off right now like crazy. Justine, thank you so much for joining us today.
Yeah, thank you for having me. Glad to be here.
Yeah, how was your flight out?
Nice and easy. Yeah, quick trip. And yeah, it's my second time in Vegas. Just was here a week and a half ago. So now glad to be back here.
That's right. You checked out the UFC fight on the Sphere?
The Sphere. Yeah, it was awesome.
Was it in the Sphere
in the
or outside?
Sphere,
Like
yeah.
there was a bunch of stuff going on. There was
UFC
parking lot parties.
In the Sphere. Yeah, it was insane.
That's cool. So what do you think of Vegas so far?
It's been a lot of fun.
A little different.
It is different, that's for sure.
I mean, Nashville's a party town, right? So
Nashville.
That's true. Nashville is like, yes. Yeah, it's a version of Vegas, I guess.
I love it. Well, thank you so much for coming out today. I really appreciate that. Like I said, you're a former chiropractor, but turned public speaker. What really got you into that? Tell a little bit more of your backstory.
It really goes back to, so my wife and I were both chiropractors. We started our practice outside of Nashville in 2012 and built a great practice. And life was good. Money was good. We were traveling, doing the things we love to do. And then in 2018, I went on a men's retreat and we went whitewater rafting. And when we hit the class 5 rapids, our raft tipped over. And it was just a freak accident. I was sitting in the back of the raft, and when I got tossed out, I got under the rapid itself. And the rapid started pushing me underwater. And I still remember the sound of my helmet scraping down the rocks as I was being pushed underwater. And I ended up getting wedged between 2 rocks. And the last thing I remember thinking is, I'm not coming back up. And everything went black. And then everything went bright white. And it was the most peaceful, serene feeling I'd ever felt. And I don't know how long that lasted, but thankfully I heard a voice that said, wake up. And I came back to consciousness and I was trapped underwater, wedged between 2 rocks. And I tried to push and I didn't budge. And I kept pushing and pushing. And if you've ever been held underwater for too long, you know that freak out feeling where your adrenaline kicks in. And we've heard of stories of like women having the strength to like lift a car off a child. Like it was like this superhuman strength came over me and I was able to push and it broke one of the buckles on my life jacket that was trapped under the rock. And I floated to the top, got swept down the river. And at that point I was rocked. And at some point in life, we all question like, why am I here? But after that, I asked a different question. I said, why am I still here? Because things could have been different in that moment. What if I didn't hear wake up? Or what if I wasn't strong enough to break free? So I think, why am I still here? And what I realized is, yes, I was living my purpose. I was helping people. I was making a difference, but I was playing way too small. And I realized if I truly want to step into the calling that was on my life, I need to exchange my comfort for my calling. So I just started going out and just speaking all over. I started putting out content on mindset, personal development, leadership, and really just trying to help other people with things that I'd been studying for years that helped me become successful. And it's opened a lot of doors. And really speaking has been one of the biggest things. It's been the catalyst. One, yes, to generate business and to make money, but to connect with cool people like you guys. I mean, we spoke at that event in 2021 or whatever it was, and that's how I met you. And now I'm here today. So it's been a fun opportunity. And yeah, just the reason for this latest TED Talk was about how I overcame my fear of public speaking. And the reason I did that one is because I did one in 2022 about my near-death experience and the lessons that I'd learned. And when I started speaking everywhere, people would see my content and they'd reach out and say, man, I love what you're doing. Speaking just comes so naturally to you, but I'm terrified. I could never do that. And I was like, no, this did not come naturally to me. Like for most of my life, I had a tremendous fear of public speaking. And I shared that in my TED talk. Like it started even from the second grade to in college when I almost failed a speech class because I had a panic attack during my speech. So my story is I had to overcome that fear, but I believe everybody's got a story to tell. So I want people to overcome their fear so they can get out and start sharing their message with the world.
I think a lot of us have been there, some fear of something, if it's public speaking or, I know in class presentations, I never wanted to get up there and give that class presentation. Yeah. That's for sure. So
public speaking, fear of public speaking is like, it's in the top 3 fears or something.
Right, yeah.
It's a very common fear.
Absolutely.
So how do you kind of help people overcome that? Because that is a real prevalent, and I think it keeps people back.
Yeah. And there's a lot of techniques that I help people with, and from breathing to just mastering the art of public speaking. But I think it starts with what's going through our head, because we get up there and we think, well, what if they judge what I'm saying? Or what if they don't like what I'm wearing? Or what if I mess up and I say the wrong thing? All these things are running through our head. It's all about me. But most people in the audience, they don't even care. They're not listening to any of that. They're saying, what's in it for me? What am I going to hear from your message? So I like people to shift it and say, stop thinking about you and think about what's in it for them. And that's what I look at. It's like if one person in the audience takes what I have to say and applies it to their life could completely change. Mm-hmm. So it takes the focus off of me. So I'm no longer nervous. So that's what I like to share with other people. When you take the focus off of yourself and focus on the impact you're going to make on someone else, the nerves start to go away.
That's great advice, really. Yeah.
I believe life is a lot about contrast, right? It's the blacks and whites, it's the extremes of all sides, and it's the perspective that gives us that. And there's this saying, obviously, stuck between a rock and a hard place. You were literally stuck between a rock and a rock.
That's right.
Underneath water, unable to breathe. But what that led you to was, I think, a really healthy relationship with mortality.
That's right.
And so when you are in a position where life and death is the zero-sum game you're playing against, everything else kind of pales in comparison in that game of contrast. What was the greatest aha that you were able to extract from that situation that you use in your teachings to help people overcome whatever they believe is their rock and hard place?
Yeah, I think for most people, we're just going through the motions of life. We're just living as is. For people to change, it takes the rock bottom moment, the loss of a loved one. Something happens. Most people don't have a near-death accident, but it takes something big to happen where we start to question. And we start to actually make a change. So my message for people is you don't need a near-death accident. You don't need the rock bottom moment in order to change. You can change right now in this moment. So that same question I ask myself with why am I still here is what they can ask themselves. You don't have to have the accident. Ask yourself, life is a gift. It's not guaranteed. You didn't have to wake up today, but you did. You're listening to this podcast. Your heart is beating. There's air in your lungs. You woke up today for a reason. Why are you still here? And when you can answer that question, and for me, one of the biggest things was there's a few different things, but one of the ones was I asked myself, if it would have all ended in that moment, is this the legacy you want to leave?
Yeah.
And I was like, no. And it still drives me to this day. It's like, I don't want to get to the end of my life and realize I could have done more. Mm-hmm. I could have helped more people. I could have made a bigger impact. So that drives me to this day. And that's what I want people to get. It's like, man, it could end. Like any soccer fans here? Yeah, soccer has this weird way of like tracking time. Like every other sport, when the clock strikes, the game is over. But soccer, when the clock ends, they have what's called bonus time.
Yeah.
And only the referee knows how much time's left. Nobody else does. But I feel like that's what I'm living right now. I'm living in bonus time. We don't know when it's going to end. And we just have to live it to the fullest. And I think we're all on bonus time because life is a gift.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's a good point. I didn't really think about the bonus time on that part, but I know that one of the biggest things that you have your show called the Mindset Doctor, and mindset. We've talked about that a lot on a lot of the shows that we host here. What has been like your biggest shift in your own mindset, I guess, over the years to lead you into talking more about mindset and keeping, positive mindset and how important that is? Because there's a lot of people out in the world that just don't understand how when you shift your mindset, that the world and everything around you also shifts your perspective.
Yeah. And that's, for me, I struggled with self-esteem. So low self-esteem, lack of self-confidence. And I remember being in Barnes & Noble when I was 16 in the self-help section. And I see a book from Tony Robbins, Awaken the Giant Within.
Yeah.
This thick book, like 600 pages. Or something.
Did you make it through the whole thing?
Yeah. And I was motivated by Tony because he was like, I read 700 books in this short amount of time. But by reading that, it opened my mind to when you change your mind, you can change your life. It doesn't have to stay the same. And from him, I got turned on to Jim Rohn and Jack Canfield and all these people. And I started reading 100 books a year ever since. And
what's your favorite book?
So it depends
top
on,
three.
Yeah, it depends on the lane. Like money book, I like You Are a Badass at Making Money, or Happy Pocket Full of Money is another good one. Or if it comes to business, I love Rocket Fuel, like having the visionary and the integrator. Those are really good books. But then mindset wise is Think and Grow Rich. It's one I read almost every year. I'm reading that again. It's just one of those powerful books that I love. But actually, one I actually love better than that is Outwitting the Devil by Napoleon Hill.
Yeah.
Which I only started reading a few years ago. Somebody told me about it, and I like it even better than Think and Grow Rich.
I know that you're such a big component about positive mindset. Do you also help the people that are approaching you to potentially work with you on like speaking, coaching, stuff like that? Is there something that you share an advice level of their mindset shift as they're stepping into the public speaking space?
Yeah, absolutely. Because mindset's so important. And I don't think mindset's everything, but it's the one thing that can affect everything. And I had a guy on my podcast. He's a golf instructor, and he's from kids trying to make it to the pros to actually working with pro level athletes, pro golfers. And I was asking about the mindset there because he does a lot of mindset work. And he said the top athletes, they have the skill, and it's pretty equal. There's not much differentiating them in their skill level, but it's their level of mindset they show up with that day. If they get in their head, they can completely be off. We saw that with Jordan Spieth years ago at the Masters, where he just kind of choked, got in his head, and everything just took a kind of derailed. You see that with Tiger Woods' career. All of a sudden, things got in his head and took his career off path. So there's definitely a lot of mindset work, and it starts with the focus. Focus in, like I said earlier, like what's in it for them? Just shifting the focus off of you and into them. And for me, in my own mindset, people ask me a lot of times, when did you become a speaker? Well, I became a speaker in my mind long before I ever stepped on a stage. And it started with me having a vision. I looked up to people like Tony Robbins and like how he used his body and how he could influence people, or Jack Canfield, how he could tell stories. And I started seeing myself as them, not trying to be them, but what would it be like if I could be on a stage and be able to influence people like that? What if I could tell stories like that? And it planted this little seed of belief. And the more I started to believe it and affirm it for myself, the more I started to actually believe it. And the more I believed it, the more I became it. And then over time, it just became who I was.
Public speaking, getting on stage is real. Sharing the story, learning how to do it, step into the voice. And there's a lot of people who teach the concepts and structure of what you talked about, like how to actually deliver a talk, how to structure the talk. There's not as many people who teach the business of speaking to create the opportunities to get on stage. And so you were a chiropractor, right? What are the pieces that you learned to create the opportunities to actually be able to share the stories that you're well known for today?
That's a great question.
Yeah. And I think part of that is I helped build our business. My wife's a chiropractor as well, by speaking. I got out there and I started just punching fear in the face and just getting out there and just getting the reps in, but just telling the story, just realizing we had a product. Any business, you've got a service. If you tell your message and your heart behind your message can change someone's life, you get out there and you start telling that story, people are going to want to do business with you. So I think there's different ways with speaking. One, you can speak for a fee, or you can speak for free, or you can pay to speak. You can pay to get on stages. I love speaking for free. Get in front of the right audience and just share your heart and what you can do. And yes, I like speaking to get paid to speak too, but there's a lot of stuff that comes with that. You've got to follow their rules and design your message to fit what they want. But when I can just go let it rip from the heart and just pour into people, that's what I love. And for somebody to have a dialed in signature message, one of my mentors told me years ago, he said, how you can take somebody from a complete stranger to a raving fan is a dialed in signature message. They're really owning your message and who you are. And you go out there and just share that with people. People can fall in love with you and they can start following you for your podcast on Instagram, wherever. And they just start to see you over and over. And then they want to do business with you.
Yeah. Have you had people approach you like since you had the 2 TEDx talks, like people that are like, I've been so inspired by you. I loved your talk. I want to potentially hire you. Like what kind of things have formulated from getting a TEDx talk, and what advice would you give to people that are looking to, get on TEDx talks basically?
Yeah. So I'll start with the last part first, because a lot of people ask, how do you have a TED talk? And there's TED talks everywhere around the country. They have different themes. And first question I ask is, why do you want to do it? Some people just want to get on the stage and have the accolades. And if that's your goal, that's not the right reason.
Yeah.
The whole platform of TED anyways is to have a message, have an idea worth spreading.
Yeah.
So start there. And some people are like, well, I have an idea, but there's a theme over here and I can make a talk that fits that theme. And I'm like, no, you need to have your message and find the right stage for your message. So start there. And then, yes, since I did this last one, because it'd been 2 years since I did my first one. And I really kept telling people over and over that would talk to me like, no, I had this fear. I had to overcome it. So
what was your first TEDx talk?
The first one was lessons from my near-death accident.
Okay.
So it was, the secret to having more in life, lessons from my near-death accident. So that one's on YouTube as well. And then after that one, people were like, man, this is great. And I was like, hey, I struggled for years. So I felt like this was an idea worth spreading, that people need to know you can overcome the fear and make a bigger impact. So as I shared that, I got confirmation. Even the people live at TED came up to me and like, I needed to hear this. I needed to hear this. And there was even people there like, I'm a speaking coach. I'm going to use some of this stuff with my clients.
How does that make you feel when people come up to you? Literally?
That was just confirmation. And that's what I just spoke at an event last week. And one of my buddies, somebody came up to him after he spoke and was like, that's exactly what I needed to hear. And that's what I told him. I was like, that's one of the best things that you can hear after speaking. Even if it's just one person came up to you and said, that's exactly what I needed to hear, it's all worth it. So then after that talk, more people have been reaching out like, hey, I resonate with this. I've struggled for years. Can you help me? So it's led to, I've been doing a lot of help, mentoring, coaching, doing some events, helping people overcome their fear so they can share their message with the world.
You had a big pivot in your career then after that near-death experience, and you mentioned your wife and you were in business together. I think having a supportive spouse is so key and pivotal. How did that come about when you said, this is what I'm going to do?
Yeah. And she's very supportive. She's here with me today. And I love that she's able to travel with me. And as I started just putting out content. I was like, I just want to help people. I don't even know if anybody's going to listen. I don't know if you guys have ever felt that. You start putting yourself out there. I don't know if anybody's going to listen. So the first of 2020, I started a Facebook group, The Mindset Doctor. And I just started I would interview people weekly and I would put out my own content. And the group grew to 1,000 people in the first month. So I was like, oh, well, people are listening and they kept wanting more. And I was like, well, other people are monetizing this. How does this work? So then I launched like mastermind groups and started coaching, and the more that started to grow, my wife realized, she's like, hey, you've got a good thing going. So she was like, hey, I got this over here. So she started running the practice. And now I kind of help her. I'm kind of the fractional CEO, just make sure things are going well. But she does a great job just running everything there. So it allows us to be able to come do things like this. Because again, this is part of my message. This is what I want to bring to the world. I want to encourage, inspire, and empower people to become the best version of themselves, and to, whether it's speaking, whether it's being a better parent, whatever it is, it's like, be the best version of you so you can live an abundant life that you were created to live.
What are some tips you have when you wake up and you're not feeling the positive mindset? How can you quickly steer out of that?
Yeah. One of the things, just put a smile on your face. Yeah. Studies have shown like you physically change and chemically change your body, even if you have to force a smile. So start there. But then one of the biggest things is gratitude. And a lot of people do gratitude wrong. They wake up in a bad mood and like, well, I got to do my gratitude list. It's the thing to do. I checked it off the list. I wrote down 5 things I was grateful for. I did the 5-minute journal. Check.
Right. We have a gratitude jar in our house.
Yeah.
So the moment we wake up, no matter how we feel, we wake up and we write down something that we're grateful for in that moment, in that day. And that's how we start our morning, every morning in our
Yeah,
household.
and gratitude's so powerful. Where
Oh,
people miss it is
100%.
they don't feel
Yes.
grateful.
Right.
Like, yes, I'm thankful for my wife. I'm thankful for a house. I'm thankful for whatever, but they don't feel the feeling of gratitude.
Yeah.
You truly put yourself in that feeling. And I had a mentor, I worked with John DeMartini, and he wrote a book years ago about gratitude. And I was on a Zoom call with him a couple years ago, and I asked him about his gratitude journal. And he pulled up a Google Doc that was like 4,000 pages long, like multiple just entries, like every day. And he was like, even these conversations I'm having now, I put in my gratitude journal, and I truly feel grateful. But he had talked about in his book before, like before he even gets out of bed, he gets a tear of gratitude because he moves himself emotionally and is so grateful before he even gets out of bed.
That's cool.
So that's kind of what I use to motivate me, is like, if I can put myself in such a grateful state, then a lot of times you get over whatever would put you in a bad mood to begin with. So gratitude is the key that can kind of move and shift and create a better mood.
I love all this.
Very.
Well, I appreciate you for joining us today. Can you share where people can connect with you online and your podcast and any information that you would like to share, that any upcoming exciting experiences coming up?
Yeah, absolutely. So you can check out drjustinemoseley.com and look the Mindset Doctor. I'm going to be interviewing Tamara on the Mindset Doctor, so be looking for that. And follow me on Instagram at Dr. Justine Moseley. If anything I said resonated, shoot me a DM. I love having conversations with people. But yeah, drjustinemoseley.com. And then on YouTube, just look up Justine Moseley, and my latest TED Talk will come up, How I Overcame My Fear of Public Speaking.
Awesome. Thank you so much for joining us today. And we're going to link all of that you said in the description of this show. Be sure to subscribe, ring that bell, leave us a review on Apple Podcasts or Spotify, and we'll see you in the next episode.